Being compliant is just straightforward. Being maliciously compliant? Well, that's another story. Welcome to this episode of Malicious Compliance. Our first one is from Guy from Death Valley. Something happened today that made me realize I was committing malicious compliance for a long time now without noticing. There's no aftermath for today's case, but I hope it still counts. Anyway, here goes. At my workplace, overtime is not paid out. Instead, it's saved to be used later, meaning if I work 2 hours extra on one day, I can choose to leave 2 hours earlier on another day, without any pay cuts or consequences. I could even leave 4 hours early and only make up those 4 hours within 2 to 3 weeks, a little bit every day. It's a good system. Each of us has a little NFC tag they hold over a scanner at the start and end of our shift, and the system automatically logs the time. Nobody can alter the data. Yesterday, I got messaged by my boss. I did not read the message though, as I was having a massive headache and didn't read it before coming into work today. I actually only read the message after my boss then told me I will be working the closing shift that day. He told me after asking via message and not receiving an answer. Thing is, today my shift started at 8 a.m. and went until 5 p.m., so it's a 9-hour shift already, and the closing shift means cleaning out the place after 5 p.m. Cleaning out the place can take from 30 minutes up to 2 hours, depending on a lot of factors. Usually it's a quick 30-minute job. Takes me 45 minutes though, as I'm a bit tidy. But considering I was, once again, forced to do the closing shift instead of being asked, an issue that I mentioned to my boss and colleagues plenty of times and caused lots of problems in the past, I was kind of pissed, so I thought to myself, make the best out of it? And how? I cleaned the place. Yes, it took me almost 2 hours. I was going slow, taking my sweet time, listened to some music over the PA speaker system, and afterwards, I took a relaxing, long shower before leaving. Taking a shower in my field of work is right within work hours, so it is legal. But where's the malicious compliance really? The malicious compliance comes in at some later point, when I will either collect enough overtime to take a few days off, or when I can simply tell my boss, "You do closing shift for me now. I've got plenty of overtime. Bye." But considering I'm closing shift by schedule again tomorrow, I'll probably be collecting plenty of extra overtime now. Edit. About the fallout of this. It happened in the past, and the fallout looked like this. I'd collect about 20 to 40 hours of overtime on my account. So much that HR themselves call my boss because of excessive overtime, and they demand I work them off as soon as possible, which means a bunch of days off that, planned right, means my boss who didn't want to work then has to cover my shifts. I mean, that's a good way to kind of get back at your boss if you think about it, because in the end it's just completely benefiting you. You're winning this entire situation, and I'm not gonna lie, I love this malicious compliance. This next one is by Leela Adams. So, several years ago, I worked for the worst boss ever. I was working as a teacher at a preschool. I had 28 students in my class, ages 4 to 5. I had no assistant at any time of the day, so this meant I had to do quite a lot of the tasks all at once by myself. One of these things were bathroom breaks. The bathroom had a half wall, boys on one side and girls on the other. This way the teacher can supervise all learners at once. I had a very well-oiled routine with my class at bathroom breaks. I'll explain in detail here. If you don't want to read, skip to the next paragraph. So I had 2 lines, boys and girls. They all lined up at opposite sides so that they could not see each other in the other toilet. Kids go in 4 at a time. Once you're done, you sit on the floor in the doorway until everyone is done. This way I could keep my eyes on almost every child at all times. The doors were always open, so I could run out if needed. I jumped over the half wall if needed. And basically, I had everyone within a few meters of myself. This entire routine took about 10 minutes. I did my routine once every hour. Kids could go to the bathroom by themselves in between bathroom breaks. There were no issues. My boss comes shouting into my class one day. A girl in my class has had an accident. She wet herself while on the way to the bathroom. My boss shouted about this girl wetting her pants in front of all my students who were having free play. The kids were all silent. She screamed at me, and I just tried to explain that she was on her way, she just didn't make it, and our next bathroom break was in 10 minutes. She continued shouting at me. I waited for her to finish screaming and asked if the child who wet herself had been helped to change. She says no, I have to go do it. I cannot leave my learners unsupervised, so I ask if she could please keep an eye on my class while I change the student into dry clothes. She looks me in the eye and says, "No, your whole class is having a bathroom break now, and from now on you go every 20 minutes. Bathroom break, the whole class, every 20 minutes. I just nodded my head and told my learners, pack up time. She said to leave the class as is and go to the bathroom. The kids line up at the class door. We then walk outside a few meters to the lockers. We line up again, while I collect new clothes. Then we walk to the bathroom and do the routine as above. Plus, I need to change my student into dry clothes. It was a nightmare. I checked the clock and when we left, made a mental note to come back in 20 minutes. And I did, every 20 minutes. The problem is, the bathrooms get cleaned every 30 minutes, so oftentimes we would have to wait outside because the bathroom was wet. Other classes needed to use the toilet, but we were constantly in there. We walked to the toilet and just walked back if no one said they needed the bathroom. By the end of the day, they were so sick of going to the toilet, around 1 p.m.-ish. The next morning we continued the routine. That meant that sometimes parents came to drop off and there was no one to welcome them or watch their child. Or that parents were still trying to do a handover and then it's been 20 minutes, so it's time for a bathroom break. We started our morning circle ring and went to the bathroom. We read a story and went to the bathroom. We had free play and bathroom. Every 20 minutes. Everyone in that school was so annoyed with me. Everyone knew it was ridiculous, but I told them that's what boss lady said, so... That afternoon, a schedule was sent out as to when every class may use the bathroom, scheduling the bathroom breaks and cleaning breaks for all the classes. And wouldn't you know it, my class was scheduled for once every 60 minutes. I feel like this is definitely a boss that doesn't belong in this position, especially if they don't want to go above and beyond and watch these kids so this teacher can take care of doing their job, especially since they don't want to put an assistant in the room to be able to have the teacher work freely without having to worry about kids being unsupervised. And our final one is from Mandy Nitty. When I was a little girl, I was pretty sickly. I often was sent home early from school with fevers caused by tonsillitis or strep throat. One day when I was about 7, I had a fever and had to be sent home again. My mother was unable to come get me, so she asked her father, my Opa, to do it. This was an unusual circumstance. Opa was a mean, old bastard, and no one in the family really liked him. He was a hard-ass German war veteran who didn't mind slapping kids around or scaring the bejesus out of them. He took me back to his house and told me to start helping him make dinner, even though I was sick. We were going to make split pea soup and I needed to start by washing and peeling potatoes for him. I put the potatoes in a bowl, filled it with water, and started scrubbing. He was sitting on a kitchen chair with a colander on his lap, not particularly paying attention to what I was doing, and told me to pour the potatoes into the colander so I could get started with washing them. I looked back at my bowl of potatoes, submerged in dirty water, and said, "Opa, that's not a good idea." Opa, who never liked to be told what is and isn't a good idea, screamed at me to put the potatoes in the fucking colander, motioning at the very colander sitting on his lap. I had a choice to make. I could explain the situation and avoid the fiasco, or I could just do exactly what he told me to do. So I shrugged and said, okay, and dumped the entire bowl of potatoes and dirty water into the colander. As I'm sure you can all imagine, the cold, dirty water spilled all over that mean old curmudgeon and his kitchen floor. Opa sat there, dumbfounded and covered in dirty potato water, for what felt like hours. I also stood there, stupidly gawking in front of him in horror, the now empty bowl still upside down in my hands. Then he did what I never would have expected, and started laughing. Somehow that was far more terrifying than if he exploded like I expected him to. He told me to clean up the mess and get out of his sight. And that's the story of my plucky, albeit foolish, malicious compliance, and possibly my first brush with death. I mean, when you're put in a situation like that where you really can't refuse, there's nothing else to do but maliciously comply. I'm glad that the situation ended with a laugh instead of a slap. Alright, that's enough maliciousness for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Malicious Compliance. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons, have a great day and stay safe out there.